Tuesday in New York City, and Evan and Tiki, we will get to everything, including the good and bad from Aaron Rodgers' first real win as the New York Jets quarterback.
Whoop, there it is.
The great Joe Beningo at 4 o'clock.
You're supposed to say, thought you knew.
Thought you knew.
There you go.
There it is.
Making you hip, Evan.
That's impossible, Tiki. That's impossible. We'll get an update on Francisco Lindor, and when the hell did Garrett Cole lose his courage? But yesterday, the New York Giants did something that I thought only the New York Jets could do. Lose a game that's impossible to lose. Lose a game that if I would have told you on Friday, if I said to you, all right, guys, this is going to happen. Daniel Jones, he ain't turning the ball over. He's going to play well, actually. The Giants will score 3 touchdowns. They will not give up a touchdown. And they will lose. You would have said I was nuts. And for most Giant fans, and there's a lot to dissect from this game, and we will attempt to do so over the course of the last 4 hours. I mean, Sean Morash already has a bag over his head.
Stop it, Sean. Take that off your head.
He's got a beautiful bag over his head.
I can't be seen. I can't be seen.
Take that off right now.
0-2, we're over.
Nah, it's not 0-2. Maybe it's your 0-10 picks in the first 2 weeks.
Don't bring that heat on me, Barber.
So there's a lot to get to from this game, but let's start with this head coach because Brian Daboll made a decision. And that decision could have been altered in many different ways and could have changed the result of this game. Let me make this clear. Graham Gano not kicking for the New York Giants is not the reason they lost the game.
No.
Because the New York Giants and the Washington Commanders, but specifically Brian Daboll, would have played out this game completely differently if they had a kicker. In some cases for the good, like kicking an extra point and it working, and some for the bad, not being aggressive on 4th down. So it is not a definitive, if they had Graham Gano, add the points they missed on extra points, they win. That's stupid. It's a fallacy. It's not true. But Tiki, considering what happened a year ago with Gano, when he's on the injury report on Saturday with a groin issue, and Brian Daboll can tell us all day he's not a doctor, when there is an injury concern around your kicker, and you know to win a game, you're probably going to have to win one close, don't you have to protect yourself?
Yeah, you should protect yourself. And this comes down to just the understanding of the injury. Well, it was a groin. How did he hurt his hamstring? We've said this many times. If you have one issue and it's bothering you and you're favoring it, you're likely going to hurt something else as well. It always happens, right? If you have a knee issue, maybe you're going to hurt your hip, or you got an ankle issue, maybe you're going to start straining your hamstring or something along that matter. To me, this comes down to Brian Daboll being too loyal to his guys, because you got to know that he asked Graham Gano, how you feel? You good? You good to go? Yeah, coach. It's just a little groin. I'll be fine. And so he trusts his guys. And trusting your guys is fine. Trusting the medical department is fine. But sometimes it's common sense that makes you say, I need to protect myself in case he's lying to me.
Yeah.
And by the way, not intentionally lying to me.
No. An athlete who wants to compete.
100%. I had a broken forearm. You good to go? Yeah, I'm good, man. Are you sure? You can't take it? I'm good.
Well,
you just do it. An athlete's mentality is, I don't want to see somebody else doing my job. And if I'm in any way capable of doing it, I'm going to show up and be out there. And that's what Graham Gano, and I'm sure Dave's, believed was going to happen.
So to me, and you're right, and that's why no one can blame Graham Gano. You have to look at the head coach and say, wait a second.
Yes.
Why did you allow a kicker who had an injury last year that basically cost you a game? How do you allow him without any protections and any alterations to just go out there and kick? And I want to give you 5 different options Brian Daboll had that could have, keyword could have, solved the issue. A few of them are obvious. A few of them I think should have been obvious. Number 1, you tell Graham Gano, thank you, sir, we're going to sit you.
Yes.
And I think that's the obvious one.
We're not getting rid of you, but you're sitting down.
Now, what's the name of the kid they have on their practice squad? Judd McEnany? Is that his name, Sean?
McNamee.
I'm close. Judd McNamee. So they actually have a place kicker on their practice squad. So you got option number 1. Hey, Graham, sorry, we know you want to compete, but you're dealing with a groin issue. We're going to be extra conservative. You sit for Judd McNamee. That's option number 1. Option number 2. you could have Judd McNamee active. Now, I get it, Teak. That's not ideal to have a third kicker on your roster, along with Jamie Gillen, along with Graham Gano, and now a third guy. Totally get it's not ideal, but that's option number 2.
Right.
But let's get to the other options that I am surprised Daboll hasn't been pushed on. Number 1, Graham Gano shouldn't be kicking off.
It's true.
Think about that.
Right.
His value is kicking field goals. His value is kicking extra points.
Yeah, but what do?
You have Jamie Gillen kick off.
But we saw Jamie Gillen kick off, and most of the time he did okay. But there was one where he didn't.
And it basically cost him the game.
It gave the Commanders a great field position.
It gave them 10 more yards in field position.
Which, but by the way, when all you have to do is go kick a field goal, is an enormous thing.
Which is what they did. That was on the game-tying field goal drive. So I get it. It wouldn't have been perfect. But again, I'm making sure that the most important aspect of Graham Gano's game is kept safe.
You're 100% right about that.
Thank you. That's an option. Why was that not considered, Mr. Head Coach? Here's option number 3. Tell Graham Gano, all right, bro, you want to kick off? There will be no returns. You boom that son of a bitch into the end zone, and you put it on the 30-yard line. No games. No games at all. And it has nothing to do with the fact that the first kickoff of the game was returned for a touchdown, if not called back for a holding penalty. So option number 4 is you tell Graham, okay, if you're going to kick off, just boom it in the end zone because bad things can happen on returns, especially with the new dynamic kicking. We talked during the offseason about potentially using a linebacker as your kicker. Just have an extra tackler out there.
Right.
So there is a risk, and you put him in a more risky situation by A, allowing him to kick off, and then B, not booming it in the end zone. And I'll give you the 5th one, and I don't think the 5th one's talked about enough. We are way too reactionary. Jamie Gillen is a professional. And it sucked that he missed an extra point to start this game. Why did the New York Giants and Brian Daboll have to quit on him? Why did they have to immediately say, you know what, this guy can't kick. We're never even going to try an extra point. Why?
Yes. So
because Locke can't hold is the answer.
Yeah. I mean, maybe.
That was part of it yesterday. That hold was terrible, and they didn't have a backup holder.
Because let's not forget that Jamie Gillen kicked a field goal last year.
Yes.
He made one, and it wasn't short.
And he also was...
It wasn't a 25-yarder or a 35-yarder. It was a 40-plus yarder.
He also was kicking during halftime. Like, the Giants made a decision, and I'm not guaranteeing you he would have made these field goals or extra points. I'm just saying they were going for 2 immediately. It's almost like Brian Daboll said, I'm screwed. So one kick... The bad hold, as you said, by Drew Lock, the missed kick by Jamie Gillen was enough early in this game to say for a Giant team, how many two-point conversions the Giants even had last year? Do you guys know the answer to that?
1?
I think it was 1 or 2.
Yeah.
So this is not exactly a perfected science, and based on the play calling of Brian Daboll, it's like they've never even practiced a two-point conversion. So I think that was another option that was completely thrown out the window.
Yeah. I mean, so, look, I get going for 2. It gives you, with your lack of faith in your kicker, the best option. And by the way, if you happen to get 1, it makes up for 2 missed extra points. Or if you make both of them, then all of a sudden you've given yourself a 2 extra point advantage over what you would have gotten. So I get it, but you're right about the play call, the execution, and it's almost got to be. I mean, I hate 2-point conversions because it's hard to change a offensive quarterback or really anybody's mindset that this is score no matter or nothing, right? It's score no matter what. So even if it's a dead play, it's a stupid throw, you just let me try something creative and put this ball where I never would think about doing it. You got to do that because the 2-point, you're not going to lose by being incomplete. Right? It's just if it's incomplete, it's incomplete. But you got to try. It's got to be thrown. It's got to be giving yourself the best opportunity to get points. And I don't know if that's practiced all the time because it's changing a mindset of what a quarterback is usually doing, which is don't make a mistake down here.
Right.
Be conservative down here. Make the right throw. 2-point conversion, you have to flip that out and say, you know what? Let's just balls to the wall. Let's go. Right? That's how you have to do it for 2-point conversions, and it didn't feel like that for the Giants.
No, not at all. And they were very reliant on it because every time they scored a touchdown, they gave up on the idea of Jamie Gillen kicking a field goal or an extra point.
By the way, that is the one that I choose.
Really?
Just let him do it again.
See, of the 5, I was curious where you'd go.
Yes, that
one. Do you tell Graham Gano you're not playing? Do you roster an extra kicker since you have one on your practice squad?
You just waste a position player.
Is it a waste, though?
No, but I just worry about, like, teams and, like, special teams and coverage guys. And you put somebody who doesn't know what they're doing, say, as a field goal block team, on the field goal block or field goal protect team, or on the punt protect team, and all of a sudden you're giving up a blocked field goal or a blocked punt, and that's worse.
Okay, you're right that it's worse, but usually if you lose a player, whether it's a special teams player, whether it's a linebacker, whether it's an offensive lineman, whether it's a running back, you name the freaking position. If you lose a guy due to injury, because it is football and guys get hurt, you usually have a guy who can play that position on your roster ready to play.
True.
When you lose your place kicker in Graham Gano, what Brian Daboll and the Giants told you is, we have nobody. I mean, it would be like when the Mets took Lindor out on Sunday, not playing with a shortstop, and say, well, we don't have one. Because that's what the Giants did. So I totally get, hey, it's not ideal, Evan, to have a third kicker on your active 53. Like, I get it. Or your 48, actually, if we're being technical here.
Yep.
Like, I get that it's not ideal. But once a player who had an injury last year that beat you in the ass, so I also believe in learning from your mistakes. That's very important as a head coach in this town. Don't make the same mistake twice. That I think you've got to be extra cautious.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because for whatever reason, I asked this exact question in our game this week from Andrew. I'm like, Andrew, I don't know Jordan Stout. Does he kick extra points too? Is he a field goal kicker? He said yes. So I think a lot of teams are going that way. Like, they're getting punters who know how to do both.
Right.
Or who did both in college.
Because, dude, it can kill your game.
Yes.
Like,
you got to have an answer for it.
I can't tell you because the entire game is played out differently. That's why it's lazy to say, if the Giants had Graham Gano, they win.
Yeah.
Everything's different. Do I think they win? I mean, maybe, probably. But everything about this game is coached differently. Even on Washington's side. You don't think the Commanders knew, hey, we're dealing with a football team that needs to get in the end zone?
Of course.
And there's good and bad on that, too. Obviously, it worked out well when the Giants are forced to go for it on a 4th down, and it works, and they score a touchdown. Like, does that happen if they have a kicker? No, probably not. But you've got to make sure that you don't get burned by the same thing you got burned by last year. And here's where I think this coach made it worse. Made it worse. This is not his death sentence.
No.
This doesn't end his career here. But after the game, I don't know if the smart move is to double down on it and almost act insulted by anyone suggesting why you would want to protect yourself and to say, well, I'm not a doctor.
I'm not a doctor.
What does the hamstring have to do with the groin? I mean, coach.
Right.
Bro.
Yeah.
What does one have to? Come on.
There's a less defiant way to answer that.
Yes.
And so, but that's Dave's. People are going to judge him off how he answers questions. I have stopped even listening to what he says in his post-game press conferences.
That's a good idea. Good advice.
I've stopped listening to his daily transcripts because I know he's not saying anything. And that's not a knock on him at all. I respect the hell out of Dave, and I actually like him a lot. I know what he's doing. He's intentionally being obscure and obtuse because he doesn't care to give us answers. And so I know you have to do it as reporters, the beat reporters that are there. I know they have to try to dig and get confirmation or understanding of situations that are going on within the team or even in a game or at a practice. But from a that's not important to me standpoint, I know I'm getting nothing out of it.
By the way, you're right. And I want to equate this. You want to bring everything full circle? I'm going to bring so full circle on this, you're not even going to believe it. Back in July, Aaron Boone said something that very much annoyed me, and we talked about it on the air, and we played it on the air, and trust me, it's very relevant to what happened over the weekend. And it reminds me of Brian Daboll, and here's what it was. The Yankees didn't walk Rafael Devers intentionally on a Sunday night, and Luis Gil gave up the game-winning home run.
Right.
And so we went around the room and said, would you have intentionally walked Rafael Devers? By the way, the irony of all of this, considering what happened over the weekend, and we'll get to that later.
Garrett.
So Aaron Boone, and this is what pissed me off, is Aaron Boone was defiant in being almost offended that anyone would even ask, why didn't you intentionally walk Devers in the 7th inning of a 0-0 game? And my point to you is, Teak, I agree with Aaron Boone. I would not have walked Rafael Devers. But why are you insulted by a valid question? Brian Daboll yesterday, I thought, was being asked very valid questions about how he handled a kicker on Sunday.
I'm not a doctor.
And instead was almost like, we're a bunch of idiots. Why are we asking? What does the groin have to do with the hamstring? Why would I consider activating another kicker? And so that's the thing that drives you nuts.
Yeah.
Dude, it's a good question. In fact, I'm not asking you to die on the sword, but maybe you come out and you say, guys, I got to tell you, sometimes as a coach, you want things back. I F this one up.
Yeah, well,
I should have been more careful with the fact that Graham Gano had a groin issue, much like last year, and I should have played it a little bit more conservatively, whether it was not having him kick off, whether it was putting another kicker on the roster. That goes along a lot better than basically acting like all of us are a bunch of morons for asking a good question.
Yeah, but I think at this point, don't you know that he's going to respond that way? Don't you know that he's going to give you some, annoy the hell out of you answer? And I think it's almost like you're doing it, and people get upset about it. It's one thing to ask it and know he gets the answer and just be like, yeah, that's Dave's. The approach that I'm taking, yeah, that's just Dave's, versus this pisses me off so bad I can't help but scream and yell about how much I hate Brian Daboll and how I think he's going to fail because he's picking fights with the media. And in New York, when you pick a fight with the media, you're done. How many times did you hear that today, right? Understand who Brian Daboll is as a head coach sitting behind the microphone. He's not telling you jack, period. No matter how much you want to hear what he's saying, he's not saying a thing, period.
So I want to say something very similar to what you just criticized, but I want to word it very differently because I don't give a rat's ass what he says to the media. Okay? So understand that my point of view is very different.
Go ahead.
I care what he says to Sean Morash, Tommy Lugauer, and the fans. I care what he says to the Giants season ticket holder who right now is spending all morning and all day calling up sports talk radio complaining that their head coach botched a kicking situation. So...
Well, I think that goes without saying.
Well, and that's where
that's kind of obvious.
Well, but that's where I think the anger comes from, not how he answers a question to Connor Hughes. No offense to Connor, who I love. Nobody cares about him. We care about us. And so it's the Giant fans saying, hey, I invest my Sundays in watching this team, and I believe we lost a football game because our head coach, with one of those menu options I mentioned, and I gave 5 different options on how you could have handled this better.
Right.
Instead of just doubling down on, well, why would you even suggest that?
Right.
Maybe you say to us, not the New York media, but to Giant fans, you know what? I would have handled this very differently if I was given a second chance.
Right. Well, or just be blunt and straight up, I screwed it up.
Yes.
That's all you got to say.
Yes.
Next question.
Yes.
I screwed it up. Next question.
Now, to head coach Brian Daboll, who's a big listener to the show, I now present to you Angry Giant fans. Let's kick it off with Joe in Bergen County. What's up, Joe?
What up, Joe?
Hey, what's going on, guys? Evan, longtime listener, going back to you and Joe and Evan.
Appreciate it.
Kiki, I'm a lifelong Giants fan.
Love it, man.
You huge fan.
Appreciate you, dude.
Yeah, now, getting back to this, I'm not a head coach. I couldn't do Brian Daboll's job. I couldn't even do Joe Shane's job. But let's be real. Graham Gano is a 37-year-old kicker who had a very similar injury last season.
Yep.
You get from the injury report, and you put him off at kickoff. Probably not the best idea. Why not put the Scottish Hammer out there, Jamie Gillian, to do the kickoffs? And tuning in on the show when you guys started, I'm glad you guys brought up about the snap and hold by Drew Lock.
Yeah.
I haven't heard many people talk about this, but I'm so glad you guys brought up today and discussed that. When I was watching the game, I was like, are my eyes deceiving me? That's a bad hold. Laces out, laces out, laces out.
Right.
And,
and even if that, then appreciate your call, Joe. Even if that really doesn't do anything, like the flight of the ball and how it moves, like it really doesn't do anything. It is a mental like hiccup for whoever's kicking the ball, unlike anything you would ever believe.
Yeah.
Because it feels like there's something in the way.
Well, you're also being set up where everything's changed. Your way of kicking extra points has changed. Now you're going for two, in which the Giants failed at it a lot last year and failed at it yesterday and had some awful play calling. And it's almost as if there was no preparation on a backup plan. A backup plan on what if Gano can't kick, a backup plan on if we need to go for two constantly. And the Giants were very unprepared on both aspects.
Yes, Sean, good job bringing up the hold because, I mean,
they lost 2 positions in one. That was brutal.
Are you still wearing this bag over your head?
Look, I made some bad predictions we'll get to later in the show. I need to hide myself from that. I'm 0-10 on picks, but more importantly, as a Giant fan, I'm here for the 10th time in 13 years at 0-2, and I'm disgusted, and frankly, I can't take it
Which
anymore.
of the 5 menu options would you have done?
I would have dressed 2 kickers.
Yeah.
Trey Hawkins played all of 6 special team snaps. You could find a guy that could sit. I would have dressed 2 kickers.
I'm looking at the hold. The laces weren't technically facing him. They were facing the sideline. So they were sideways.
So you're saying it wasn't a bad hole by Drew Lock?
Maybe it was. It was just...
It was a little hesitation, too.
Yeah, it was like a hesi. And so he got his hand out late. So it's interesting.
Everything needs to be timed up perfectly, as you know, on an extra point or
and how many times have
Locke and
Drew
Gillen.
Lock and Jamie Gillen
Well, but that's my point.
practiced kicking.
But that's a part of not being prepared for this kind of situation.
I'm sure they did it on the sideline. They had to have done it on the sideline. I mean, I wasn't watching these games. I don't know if the broadcast showed it. But as soon as Graham... Did they?
No, I was going to say the broadcast left a lot to be desired.
Well,
They definitely
that's what
didn't show
I mean.
that.
As soon as a kicker gets hurt, you have to go watch whoever the new kicker is on the sideline.
Yeah,
because it's gonna become an issue, as it obviously was for the Giants.
Let's go to Diego in East Meadow. What's up, Diego?
Hey, boys. Another wonderful year where the pool's not even closed and the season is dead.
It's still 80 outside. You got to keep the pool open for another week.
That's his response. I thought you were going to say it's not over yet. It's only 2 weeks. That's the pool. It should still be open.
Tiki, that's not really encouraging. But anyway.
I'm just trying to change the subject, Diego. You know how it goes.
Well, I mean, it's not going to get any better. But
no, you're right.
My problem with the head coach, right? What he did was negligent. We know this team doesn't have enough talent to overcome mistakes on the field. And you're sending them out at a disadvantage because the whole game plan had to change, right? You're talking about putting more pressure on DJ because now he knows every single drive has to end in a touchdown, plus everything else that has to go into it. And the fact is that for someone that teaches smart, tough, and dependable, what he did was not smart. And then to top it all off, he lets his rookie wide receiver sit at the locker room at the end of the game, and he takes responsibility. He says, I have to catch that ball, which he does.
Right.
But you know what? If the coach didn't make that dumb decision to start the game, maybe you don't have to throw it on 4th down. That whole drive at the end of the game could just be clock management. We kick it, we win.
Well, that's why the whole game is completely different if they have a kicker and they're thinking, hey, we can kick a field goal. Like on 4th and 4 from the Washington 22-yard line with a little over 2 minutes to go in an 18-18 game, what do you think? I mean, are they going, especially knowing how conservative Brian Daboll has been over really last year and this year? So everything about this game plays out completely differently if they have a kicker.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Now, do the Commanders still have an opportunity to come back and tie this game or even win it? Because this happened with the 2 minute. The 2 minute warning hadn't even gone yet.
Yeah.
Of course. But also, that's a first down. If Malik Neighbors catches this ball, and this is why Malik is taking all the heat on himself. If he catches this ball, then they can run out a lot of the clock. And so...
Or, they're going to run out the clock. Are they going to set up Jamie Gillen for a 28-yard field goal? Or are they going to have to get in the end zone?
Right, there's an urgency. That's what we're not talking about.
Okay, so here's what Daboll said after the game. He said there was an amount of yards where he would have gone for a game-winning field goal. Now, he didn't tell us how many yards that is.
Right.
I also choose really not to believe him. Because if you're not kicking extra points in situations where clearly 18-15, I mean, let's just do some math here. If you're up 18-15, you kick the extra point. What are you doing?
Right.
Like, that's not even a question. So if you're not kicking, and how far is an extra point these days? How many yards is it?
It's on the 20. It's like a 34-yard.
34-yard kick?
Something like that.
I thought 36, but he might be right.
It might be right. I can't remember.
So 36-yard kick. No. Yeah, 32-yard kick? A 31-yard kick?
Well, Jamie Gillen has made one. It was 40 yards.
But he wouldn't let him attempt 36-yard extra points the entire day.
This goes to the other managing of the kicking situation. On that last drive, the moment Washington gets within 50-yard field goal territory, stop tackling anybody. You're going to need a touchdown. You can't kick field goals anywhere.
Let him go in the end zone.
I would have let Washington run free, surprise them, score, and get the ball back with 51 seconds, and hope Malik Neighbors creates some magic. You get in the end zone and win the game.
I was thinking about that. He's right. Like, and to me, it started to hit me when it was, I think it was first down from the Giant 25-yard line. At that point, I'm realizing this Austin Seibert's not missing. All right? He's just not.
Yep.
He's made every freaking field goal. I would let them just get in the end zone immediately. Now, the problem is they score a touchdown, they kick an extra point. You got to score a touchdown and actually convert on a 2-point conversion.
But still, give me that chance with my offense.
By the way, Sean, the extra point line of scrimmage is 7. Or on the 15, they now do it 8 yards back as opposed to 7 like it used to be. So it is a 33-yard.
So think about that.
All right.
So this head coach wasn't allowing Gillen to kick 33-yard field goals, extra points the entire day.
Yeah.
So when was he going to allow him to kick on that final drive if Neighbors made that catch?
A 40-yard field goal, which is the length that he has made in his career. Made it last year.
Yeah.
I don't remember the game that he did it, but he was 1 for 1 in his career, and he made it. So he just missed this extra point, which now all of a sudden in your mind as a coach says, we can't trust him.
More your calls. The Brian Daboll situation. Malik Neighbors' incredible game / disappointing result. And Jet fans, when we come back, we get to you because the New York Jets won a football game. But there was a lot of things that make you scared and worried. We'll get to all of it coming up, plus more your Giant and Jet calls at 888-808-1019.